Hey, it's Noelle Bloom here, and welcome to Bloom TV. You're in the right place if you want to create a business that makes a difference and live a fabulous life. Have you ever questioned whether the work you're doing in the world fully encompasses what you're passionate about? Or maybe you find it challenging to figure out how you can apply what you're good at to your passions. And if you struggle with any of this, I want you to know that you are not alone. Many of us entrepreneurs struggle with this day in and day out. But if you've noticed, not many people are talking about it. Why? Because it reveals that the entrepreneurship journey is messy, and oftentimes there's not a clear route to success. If you see someone who's rocking it online, they've got a business they love, they've got a great lifestyle, and they've really been able to find that alignment between their skills, their passions, and their strengths. If you do your research, you might just come to find out that their journey to success had detours, they had dead ends, and they've had to reinvent themselves along the way. And that's exactly the conversation I'm going to have right now with a very special guest. Her name is Briena Sash, and she's an award-winning photographer and the creator of Wellness Stock Shop, the world's most soulful source for wellness imagery. And she's going to open up about how she's been able to test different business ideas and use her skill set to ultimately create a business that she loves, and using her skills towards something that she's passionate about. So it doesn't matter what stage of business you're in. It doesn't matter where you are in life right now. I guarantee that if you sit down with us and have this conversation, you will come out with aha moments and some practical tips that you can use in your business today. So with that said, I'd love for you to join us in this conversation so you can discover how you can apply your skills to what you're passionate about. So let's dive in. So Briena, thank you so much for joining me. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you because I see so many entrepreneurs struggling to figure out, what that skill set is or how they can apply what they're good at to their passions. And I just want to thank you for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. So if you could start out by just sharing a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey and where did you first start your business? Because as we've talked about before, the entrepreneurship journey is not wasn't an overnight success for you, and neither was it for me. And I know a lot of times out there, we see a lot of people starting quick businesses and getting, reaching a high level of success very, very quickly. But for most of us, that's not the way it happens. And so I'd love to, for you to take us way back to when you first started.
Oh my gosh.
Way back.
Whoa. Okay. It's been such a crazy ride. And I like it that you mentioned that sometimes we see people just doing this overnight success. And I feel like you don't always know what's underneath. You don't always know what their journey was, even though we assume that it was just an overnight success. But I've realized that everything along my path has actually added to, my skill set and just bringing me to where I'm at now. So, it's pretty common. I went through my 20s trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to be doing? And what's my purpose in this life? And you're always getting different, suggestions and people's input. And so from my dad, I heard, oh, it doesn't matter what you do. And you don't have to be passionate about what you do. You can do, what you like, just kind of as hobbies on the side. So just do something to make money. So I kind of had that in the back of my head. But on the other hand, I'm very purpose driven. And if I'm not totally just into something and feel a lot of purpose in it, I just am miserable. So I went through my 20s. I was a big traveler, so I traveled around the world, and I would pick up these different ideas. I actually was in Guatemala, and I decided that I wanted to help support the artisans down there by paying them a good wage for their stuff, and then I'd fly back here, and then I'd go to these markets and set up and try to sell stuff. Well, I realized that I sucked at that, so I moved on from that, and then I was bringing my camera everywhere. while I was traveling. So then I thought, oh my gosh, I want to be a photographer. That makes so much sense because I love traveling and I can pay to go traveling and take these photos. And that's like where every single photographer gets drawn into photography, I feel like. And that never happens hardly ever. So here I was with a camera, and I remember I didn't even know how to use it at all. And in Guatemala, actually, there was a woman there who was an artist photographer, and she taught me a few things, skills to use an SLR camera. So here I was just like testing it out, thinking this dream's going to be a reality. And what happened was that just like most photographers, I got funneled into portraiture. And so I actually got contracted by the biggest wedding photography studio in Portland. So I got into wedding photography, and it was miserable for me, actually. But kind of thankfully, I guess, in 2010, I realized I couldn't do that anymore because I contracted Lyme disease, and it really took a toll on my body. So I got out of weddings, and then I started just shooting regular portraiture, like families and high school seniors and stuff like that. So that was kind of what brought me to where I'm at now. I don't know if I should go into the story of then how I transitioned from that into my business now. I'm sure that we'll be relaying that. But along the way, there were so many other things that I did that it felt like I was getting sidetracked. Things that were totally off of my path and outside of my passion. It's kind of ridiculous things, like I delivered sushi and I had a Christmas ornament cart.
Yes.
So it was like doing totally weird, random things. But I don't regret any of that because I know all of that was building to where I'm at now. So it was just kind of a wild ride. Definitely not a direct route.
Yeah, I love that. And I was going to ask you too, if you did mention the Christmas ornament business, I was going to say, please tell us about the Christmas ornament business, because I was cracking up when we were first talking, and then you were telling me all these things you were doing, and then you were like, why was I doing that? And like, you look back, it's so funny. And you look back and you're like, why was I making Christmas ornaments? Like, I just thought that was so funny.
I have no idea. It was something that a really good friend suggested. She was like, oh, this is an amazing business idea. Let's do this together. And I had just finished traveling through Guatemala and trying to sell artisan goods, realizing I suck at this. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. You never know. Yeah. And it was so out of alignment from who I am and what I'm about, because really I'm an environmentalist and a humanitarian, and that's where my passion is and my heart is. So selling Christmas ornaments was like, what? Yeah.
I think it's funny that sometimes when we look back, we can look at the different detours we took, and not that they're not valuable. And I know many people feel like it's a waste of time. You look back and you're like, why was I doing this? Or why was I doing that? But I think that with each detour, there's so much value in there. And I think the more we can explore, especially in the beginning, the more we can figure out, ooh, like I really love aspects of this, or I don't like aspects of that. So in all, I think that a single experience, whether you feel like it was a waste of time or you feel like, oh, that was a little ridiculous, that I kind of went down a rabbit hole, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much value that we can take and move forward. And I think as people will see how the different things you've done has played out into what you're doing now. So at this point in the journey, you're doing the portrait photography, right? Mm-hmm. And can you talk about the different maybe emotions that you felt, that you were kind of getting hints or so that, this may not be in alignment in what I want to do maybe going forward? Can you talk a little bit about maybe that pivot where you started to feel differently about what you were doing as far as the portrait photography business?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that strange thing that I was in this place where I was clearly good at what I was doing. I was winning awards for my photography. I was getting published in international publications and magazines and the newspaper. And so all of that, thinking of all of that, makes one assume that, okay, I'm doing the right thing. But in reality, with my business, it was like everything was coming so hard. Everything, the way I describe it is I kind of felt like I was kind of wading against the stream up a molasses river. It was so hard. It took so much effort. Everything was just so taxing. And so I had calls with coaches and experts, and I was going to all these trainings and listening to people talking about business, and all the feedback I was getting was that you're doing everything right. I don't know why you're not just booming. And so it was just like this real like tug of war within myself, feeling like, okay, I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but maybe I'm not doing the right thing. And I kind of thought, well, maybe I need to open a portrait studio. Maybe that'll get me ahead. But then I wasn't quite committed to that. So it was like these weird kind of back and forth feelings like, yes, I need to just go all in, but no, I don't want to. And I kind of got to this place where I was in a very dark place, actually. It was like I was very depressed and I felt like I had no purpose. And I realized that I wasn't doing anything that I believed in. I mean, I kind of thought, how did I get to this place as a portrait photographer? I never set out thinking, I want to be a portrait photographer. I never, ever had that in my mind. So it was just like this series of events that kind of funneled me into that place. So I woke up and I kind of thought, it felt like I was in the middle of this vast ocean and I was there all alone, just kind of like, where am I? How did I get to this place? I have no idea why I'm here or which direction I'm going even. And so it made me start really thinking about things and reflecting on things. And honestly, I didn't even value portraiture. I don't have any portraits on my walls. It's never anything that I've really cared about. So I realized I just had kind of gotten off course of my path and I didn't have any sort of connection to it. So I decided one day to just start journaling. And that's kind of my therapy. It's like when I get to the lowest point in my life, I grab my journal and then I dump stuff out. And it's so interesting because for me, I just do like the mind dumping journaling. I don't do anything, I'm not thinking really. I'm just like dumping it all out. And it's how I find clarity. I realize that I've already got everything inside. I just need to let it out and actually read it. So I grabbed my journal. I remember it was a fall day. It was in October. It was like rainy outside. So it was all cozy in my house. And I just started, I know I love those moments. I just started writing and I realized right then and there, I wrote it out. It was like, I don't want to be a portrait photographer. I want to be a photographer for wellness. I want to start a stock photography site for the wellness industry. It was just there, black and white. And I had been working with some clients for branding photography who were massage therapists and health coaches and essential oils advocates and spa owners. And while I was working with them, I was kind of checking out all the other competitor websites in the area, all their photography. It was clear that it was stock photography and it was so bad. It was like that so very common, like perfectly polished woman laying on a massage table with a white towel and a perfectly placed hair flower, that's so fake and you can't relate to it at all. Yeah. Everyone had photos like that. And so I started researching stock photos for wellness, natural wellness, and it was awful. And wellness, natural wellness had always been really a passion of mine. And I always thought when I was a kid that I would be a naturopathic doctor and I wanted to go to Bastyr University and study naturopathic medicine. And so I had always thought growing up that would be a part of my life. So all of a sudden this was coming back. And because, like I mentioned, I contracted Lyme disease, I was actually finding a lot of relief with essential oils. So I had started using essential oils. And so all of this was coming back into my life. And I was thinking about, my purpose in this life and my deepest passion is the environment. And I'd always been an environmental activist. Even when I was a kid, I started the Save the Earth Club.
Yeah.
And I was always like a member of Friends of the Rainforest and all that sort of stuff, even as a kid.
Right.
So like all this was coming back to me. And I just realized right here, this was a way for me to kind of connect everything that I was doing to my work and my skill of photography. So I wrote that out in my journal, and it was just like, bam, that day I closed down my portrait studio and I was like, I'm going to start a stock photo site. And that was my new mission in life. So that's where I am now.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love that. And so a few things as you were, talking. One is that, for those of you watching, if you ever feel a lack of clarity in your life, if you don't know where you're going and what to do, I always recommend working with people, but at some point you need to sit with yourself and get some of your own clarity. And I love the fact that you journaled and you kind of figured it out. I've been journaling since I can basically write. I always kept a journal, middle school, high school, just and beyond. And it's really been a way for me to find myself and to map out those dreams and desires, and also a space to get real with yourself, because of course it's for you, right? No one's reading your journal or running around trying to see all your secrets, but having that blank space to just let your thoughts out and sort of like do a brain dump about auditing where you are in your life, what's not working in your business, and how you can kind of move forward. And then something else that just jogged my memory a little bit is that many people, and I'm sure you can attest to this, many people are looking for answers in other people. They go to other people looking for that validation. And I think it's such a courageous thing that you did, as far as you knowing that what you were doing wasn't right for you. It wasn't in alignment with what you wanted to do. But everyone else was saying, what's going on? What's wrong? It's great. You're getting awards and you're in the newspaper for your portrait business. And to have that awareness and say, you know what, yeah, it's successful, on the outside, but internally it's not working for me anymore. And I think a lot of people have a hard time actually walking away from things that aren't serving them anymore, even if it's successful. So if you're watching this and you feel like, you know what, I am doing something right now that is working, and maybe it's making you some money and you're making a living off of it, that doesn't mean that you can't venture off and do something else and explore other dreams, unlived dreams that you potentially have. So with you, after journaling, you realize that you want to start a stock photography business, or at least start branching that direction. What did the people around you say, right? Like, I want to know, were they like, are you crazy? Like, why are you stopping? Like, can you tell us a little bit about what those conversations look like?
Okay, so they weren't really conversations. It was more like, what? Wait, explain to me, what is this? And people are going to pay money for that? What? Okay.
Yeah.
And it was more like a look, like, oh.
Okay, go on with your bad self. Like,
yeah. So later down the road, after I launched it and they could actually see what it was, they were like, I had so many people tell me, like the closest people in my life, tell me, I didn't really understand what you were trying to do, but now I totally get it. That's so brilliant. Or I thought you were pretty crazy for closing down your portrait business. Honestly, I didn't want to tell you, stuff like that. And I think that there was one person who believed in me. That was my dad. Everyone else, it was so clear. And when you know someone really well, they can't hide it. You can tell that they have doubts, right? So here, everyone in my life, except for my dad, doubted me and doubted what I was doing. So, but for me, it was like the first time in my life, I was like, that's fine if you don't get it. I just don't care because I know what I'm doing. It made so much sense to me. And I just knew that it was going to work. I knew the industry needed this so bad. And it was really beyond that, because for me, as I mentioned, I'm totally, the environment and the earth is at my core passion. So I had actually been flown down to San Francisco by the Story of Stuff Project. If you don't know them, they are a really awesome nonprofit organization that basically gets the word out about what happens to stuff after we get rid of it. So it doesn't just disappear. Where does it end up? So it kind of, they tell the story of stuff. So they flew me down to San Francisco to help work on a plastic microbeads campaign. So it was, plastic microbeads that are in, facial cleansers and even toothpaste that get washed into the ocean. And they're basically destroying coral reefs. They're suffocating coral reefs because they think it's plankton and eat it. So here I was down there to work on this environmental campaign. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is going to feed my soul. This is the answer for me. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been working towards. It's in how I can actually take my skill and work towards what I believe in. And so I got down there and I worked on this, and I didn't feel any different. I didn't feel like this sense of, overwhelming relief, or like, oh, this is what I want to be doing, or yes, I have to go back and do this again. I didn't feel any of that. So I was so confused. And I started asking myself, why didn't I have this feeling? Is it because I really don't care about the environment and I've been just like fooling myself the whole time? And I realized that it wasn't that at all. It was that I wanted to reach people in a different way. I didn't feel like working with a nonprofit that is really promoting environmental activism is the way to reach those people out there who don't even really care about the environment. I wanted to reach those people. I wanted to reach the people who really, what did they care about? They care about themselves and their health of their family first. So if they're going to stop drinking out of plastic disposable water bottles, they're not necessarily thinking of the environmental impacts. They're thinking about, okay, the plastic chemicals that are leaching into the water, how it's affecting their health and their family's health. So those are the people that I really wanted to reach. And being able to actually support people who are already promoting this holistic and sustainable lifestyle, like health coaches and people who are promoting organic eating and stuff like that, and non-toxic home cleaners and, cleaning with essential oils or whatnot. By supporting them, I could actually reach so many more people. And it became more of like this collective sort of almost like a partnership to me. It's like we're working together to actually get this message out and to actually help reach these people and transform their lives and the environment. So it became like this whole different concept to me of how I could actually be an environmental activist. So that's kind of like how my mind kind of transformed and moved into this whole new direction. So I really feel like when we're going out there and we think we've got this mission, getting to that mission is not always in a direct way. Like sometimes we have to get so creative with how we approach that. And just like you were saying earlier, you talked about how a lot of times we're going out and we are looking for approval or, whatever from other people, but we really need to tap into ourselves. That's exactly, oh my gosh, that's such a strong message, because that's exactly what I was looking at. I was looking at, okay, how are all these other people promoting, living in a sustainable way and supporting the environment, or, promoting, a healthy environment. And it was such a totally different way than what I'm actually going towards. So I just had to get so creative. And so I hope that people realize that. And it's really, we had also talked about before, also the concept of, okay, do you have to be super passionate about what it is that you're specifically doing? Or is it like this passion is there and you're just using your skill that you're not necessarily passionate about but it's your skill to actually use as a tool to help you move towards that passion and pursue that passion. And I think that's really the big message, especially in my life and my story and my journey, is that you just really need to be creative and think outside the box and stop watching what everyone else is doing and actually form something that works for you.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. And even as you're talking, like I'm squirming around in my chair because it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And so, okay, so let me see where I want to go back to. So when you first when you first decided, you know what, the portrait business is I'm stopping that and I'm gonna go do the stock photography. And you talked about how, you know, people around you were like, okay, you know, it wasn't sort of a conversation, but they weren't like, go ahead, do it. I'm so excited. Just go smash it. You're going to do great, except your father. But I think many times, again, we're looking for that validation from other people. And a lot of times we're not going to get it from the people who we want it from. And something else that just came up is that we can't expect everyone to support us and for them to see the vision. And I love that you brought up creativity, because I look around in many different industries and I see that everyone is doing what everyone else is doing. They're looking for inspiration in their own industry, and they're not looking outside of it to get new ideas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as far as the work that I do, it's so important that I help people think more creatively when it comes to their business model and what they're putting out there and really the businesses that they're starting. And a lot of times it's not a success the first time around. You have to toy with things, you have to explore. And I love the fact that, you know, you went to San Francisco and you were really engaged in the nonprofit sector, and you're like, wait, I thought this was going to feel this type of way, but you know what? I don't know anymore. And I've been in that situation to where I thought, oh, I really want to do this. I'm so excited. This is it. Like, I can put my money on it. This is what it's going to be. And then after I do it and I'm just like, I'm even more confused before I started, you know, this whole thing, because now I've experienced it. And I think, again, that's why it's so important to give ourselves permission to let go of things that aren't serving us and to explore. And I think with business and the entrepreneurship journey, it's all about seeing what works for you. What works for someone else might not work for you. And I think when we can set with that fact and put our skills first and know, you know what skills do I have that I can apply to what I'm passionate about? And I think once you start asking that type of question, and not necessarily looking at what everyone else is doing, you'll start to come up with new innovative ideas for how you can actually make money, or not just make money, but just be engaged in something that you're excited about. And another thing with the passion, you don't necessarily have to be passionate about what you're doing specifically, like you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. But you can use that skill. So for your photography and that beauty that you can capture through the camera, you can then touch people in a different way. It doesn't have to be, you know, you working in a nonprofit. So I think allowing us to kind of pull the onion back and pull the layers in to see what is the core of what I'm passionate about and what skills do I already possess that I can go out there and kind of kill it in a way that no one else is doing it. So yeah, I love it.
You know, it's so, I have so much to say about this. My mind is exploding. So I had a call, like a discovery call with a coach. And she kept asking me these questions, like, why am I doing what I do? Why am I doing what I do? Like, she kept asking me over and over, and I kept spitting out these answers. Yeah. And it was like, she kept asking and asking and digging, and I didn't know what she was trying to get to. And finally she was like, okay, you're not giving me the one answer that I've been looking for this whole time. And I was like, huh? And she was like, I'm waiting for you to say that you're passionate about photography. And I was like, yeah, because I'm really not passionate about photography. I'm a creative person and I love having a creative outlet, but I am not the person who, I have colleagues who are super passionate about photography. They're totally nerds about what camera they have and all the different functions and everything it can do and what's the newest and latest and, you know, all that sort of stuff, and reading photography books and different stuff, you know, stuff about lighting and posing and stuff. I am not that person at all. My camera and photography is my creative outlet. That is not what I'm passionate about. And so I think that's part of why portraiture just was not for me, because I wasn't passionate about photography. I wasn't passionate about portraits. I wasn't passionate about taking pictures of people and families. So it was like there was no passion there at all.
Yeah.
But what I am passionate about is the environment. And so I'm able to actually take my skill, which I'm not passionate about, it's just my skill, it's what I'm good at, and actually use that as my tool to actually really, really contribute to what is super important to me and what my passion really is. So I love that message that you're sending. It's so important to know that, because I have heard so many people talk about, what applying your passion to your work. And I think that a lot of people translate that in the wrong way, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily so direct. It's not, okay, what do I do? Technically, I'm a photographer, and I'm not passionate about it. So a lot of people would look at that and think, well, then you're not doing the right thing.
Right.
But I am so doing the right thing. For me, this is like exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I see many people out there promoting, follow your passionate and do what you're passionate about. And I love the idea behind that, but it's just like, no, like, don't do that. First, what type of skills do you have? What type of natural talents do you have? What feels easy to you? What feels so low stress that it's just like, you can just do it and try just get in the zone. And I think that once you're very clear on what you are really good at, you can then apply it in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. It's in countless possibilities that you can do work that actually feels fulfilling. And you don't always have to be super passionate about that thing that you're doing. And what I've noticed in working with people and looking at how people run their businesses is a lot of time, once they get really, really good at something specific and they apply it, that's when they start feeling even more passionate, because the work comes easy, and then they look at the impact. And when you know your skills, you can always deviate and change different things, but sometimes you can be passionate about one thing one year and then passionate about, something different the next. And then you see many people just kind of changing businesses all over the place. Mm-hmm. But when you know that, for example, for you, you're passionate about sustainable living, you're passionate about, natural stuff and just the world and the earth and the environment. So once you know that that's your core, maybe, photography isn't the thing that you'll do forever, but it might be something else, but you still know that you got skills and that you can apply them in a different way. And as long as you know that what you're good at, you can apply it in many different ways. So I love that. It's never just like a clear path. And the last time we talked, we went deep into overnight success, and just your story is a lot like other people's story, right? We're kind of testing different things. Mm-hmm. We're trying this on. Does it fit? Does it look right? And despite what anyone else thinks, what it is you want to do. And the more you're aware of who you are and those values, no one out there, no coach, no consultant can tell you otherwise. And so, yeah, I love that.
It's so true, because I feel like, everyone has their unique set of qualities, skills, passions, personality traits. Everyone has this unique combination of things that makes them them. And so even working with a coach, I feel like it's really important to really be in tune with yourself when it comes to all of those things, because you're the person who knows yourself the best. So being able to figure out how to connect the dots. And it's so interesting, because I feel like oftentimes we think we're passionate about something, but in reality, that's not what we're passionate about.
Yes.
So I remember when I went to this photography retreat, basically. It was like a boot camp. And they were talking about your why, your purpose. And so they're like, you have to come up with your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why is this? And, I kind of thought, okay, well, they're talking about how it has to be, well, I want to make a lot of money for my family, and I want to have this elaborate lifestyle, like a big house, and travel and do all this amazing stuff. And I really want to make sure that I let women know how beautiful they are. And that's like the answer for every single portrait photographer out there.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought, okay. And I would spend hours and days, like over a series of a couple of years, doing those kind of exercises, trying to figure out, okay, why is it that I'm doing this? And every time it was like, yeah, okay, this is why I'm doing it. But I wasn't totally sold on that. And I'd have to come back to the exercise over and over again. And I just, it didn't like bring up this burning kind of passion, like, yes, that's what it is. And so I realized that later, once I figured out everything that we've talked about, that I kind of thought that's what I was supposed to be passionate about. I thought that was supposed to be my why. And so it totally kind of, I guess, gave me this feeling and this impression in my mind, like, that's supposed to be my why. So that's what my why is. And in reality, it was so far away, so far removed from my why and what I was passionate about. And it's because I wasn't even in the right industry. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. Everything was disconnected. And so I feel like if there is anyone watching this, for instance, that has gone through that, because it's a really common exercise, has gone through that and has never really settled on or felt so overwhelmingly passionate about the answer that they've come up with, it's very possible that they just haven't connected to their right path yet. What they're doing is not necessarily in alignment with their passion and their purpose. And I think that's something that we should always be questioning ourselves and checking in with ourselves about, because so often we end up settling on something. And when we settle on something, just like I settled on portraiture, or I got funneled into that, and like I said, everything happened. It seemed like everything was set up and it should have been so prosperous and successful, but it was so hard. It was like everything took so much energy. And so I feel like when you're in a place like that, there's kind of these signals that something's off, something's wrong, and you really need to check in with yourself. And like you said, sometimes we just have to drop everything. Even though we've built a complete empire, we've spent years pouring in all this time and money and energy, it can be so terrifying to consider this. But sometimes the most healthy thing and the most profitable and successful thing we can possibly do is to just decide, I'm on the wrong path, I'm dropping it all, and just start over. And that's okay. That's totally a courageous move, and it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. It's okay. And I think, like you said, you kind of got funneled into portrait photography. And I think that many of us, me included, have been down a default path because I wasn't paying attention. Part of it was that I needed the experience, but I wasn't really paying attention to what I wanted to do. And like how it always goes back to looking at what everyone else is doing and thinking, okay, this is how people make money in this industry. This is how things are done. There's nothing wrong with kind of getting a little bit of an idea of how things are working. But, you always want to bring your creativity and, of course, know yourself when things are not going right and paying attention to those cues. And sometimes it can be hard to feel like, oh, is this it? Especially like you mentioned, once you've built that foundation, once you're already having success. But I think, like you said, it's a really courageous move to drop everything and say, you know what, I'm going to change direction. So how did you feel when you knew for sure that you were dropping the portrait business? What type of emotions came up as you transitioned to that?
Oh my gosh. So many waves of emotion, but I would say overall, it was really a relief, because even having any portrait session, I was always stressed out going into it. It never felt like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have this portrait session. So it was just like things were just totally wrong in every way. So I felt this overwhelming relief, like, oh my gosh, I never have to have a portrait session again, ever, if I don't want to. And and also just the knowing of like, this is so much in alignment with what I want. And it's so many things lined up. Like, one thing that I really love is, I actually heard this from Marie Forleo, that she had her fingers in so many things. Like, she had a dance studio, and she also had a coaching business, and she was doing all this stuff, and she realized she couldn't keep up with all of it. So she had to choose one and let the other go.
Yeah.
So she kind of asked herself, like, what is the actual lifestyle that I want to be living? And she wanted to be able to travel and move around and not be tied to one place. And so she decided she couldn't have her dance studio. She had to let that go. And that resonated with me so much, because going through years of trying to figure out, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? At one point I thought, oh, maybe I should have a coffee shop, like so many things. And I'm the same way. I'm like, I want time flexibility. I want to be able to travel anywhere I want, whenever I want to. I don't want to be tied to one place. So having a coffee shop would have been the worst decision of my life.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the same with the portrait studio. So then I realized, oh, that's why I never actually put the effort in and the commitment into launching a portrait studio, a physical studio, because that would have tied me to one place. So it's like, we have these internal, knowings that kind of prevent us from doing these things as much as they possibly can. And it makes it so hard to go down the wrong path of launching something huge like a portrait studio if it's the wrong path for you. So it's so important to actually listen to that. So when I actually wrote this out in my journal and I was like, I'm closing down my portrait studio, it was like, like this huge sigh of relief. But on the other hand, it was terrifying. I mean, I had literally spent years building up this portrait business, and I had just made thousands of dollars in investments in courses, different trainings and equipment and all this sort of stuff over the past year. So that meant that transitioning out of that, I didn't need the type of equipment that I had purchased, because I wasn't going to be doing portrait photography anymore. All the courses that I invested in were worthless. Like, whoa, that was huge. Not to mention the hours. Like, I would wake up in the morning, get on my computer. I would go to bed at like 2:00 in the morning, still, the whole day on my computer doing business stuff. And so thinking of all that, it felt terrifying to just let that all go and just start totally new and have to start from scratch. And the thing is, though, that I realized is that everything that I've done up until this point, I needed to actually experience that, because I was building skills. If I hadn't gotten contracted by that wedding photography studio, I mean, that gave me so much practice. I'm a self-taught photographer, and they hired me. Yeah. I don't know how they hired me, because I had never shot a wedding before. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was learning. I was getting paid to learn. And then that funneled me into the portrait business. And the whole time I was just building these mad skills with editing and photographing. And so I needed all of that. And I was learning all these business skills along the way too, with every single business that I had launched, failed, started again. I tried to sell, do you remember, I don't know if it was popular in California, but there was like this bone jewelry that became really popular, bone or horn jewelry. And people would like gauge their ears.
Yes.
So I had traveled to Bali, and they make that stuff there. So I bought bunches of that, and I was like, I'm going to take it home. I'm going to start a website. I'm going to sell this stuff. I mean, I did so much stuff that was just so, looking back, it's like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But I needed all of that. I needed to realize, okay, this isn't for me, or I needed to gain some sort of skill set from whatever I was doing. Everything you do, you're gaining something. And so it's never a waste. And so I think that anyone watching this, if they are at this point where they're like in a terrifying spot because they think, I'm on the wrong track, I think I do need to totally shut down everything I've been doing and start something new. Just know you never wasted any of your time. You've always done exactly what you need to do. You've always been in the right place. It's okay to take that, what you've learned, what you've built. It's okay to shut that down and start something new, because whatever you're finding is your passion and your purpose now, it's going to be that much better.
Yes. And in the moment you said that you felt like, okay, I have to end this and I have to start from scratch. But in reality, you were starting over something new, but you had the opportunity to take over those skills and everything you've learned. So it wasn't really like you were starting from zero. And I think that's an important thing to note here, is that you never really start over, because you've been building skills and building relationships and just learning how business works, right?
Yes, yeah, totally. And it's almost like, okay, I had those years to kind of play business, like to learn about business and to fail in these different areas and to really test things out and to learn what doesn't work. And holy crap, I can tell you, when I launched my business, Wellness Stock Shop, I did things so differently than I ever did when I launched my portrait business. I did it so differently because I had all those years to test out everything and to know, okay, this stuff, the way I was doing it, didn't work. So I'm doing it totally differently. I'm taking what I learned that did work, the things that I loved, I'm applying that, and I'm getting rid of everything else because I've tested it out and I know that I am beyond that. Like letting that stuff go. And yeah, it's been huge.
Yeah. So it's been like that experimentation. And I want to, before we wrap up, I really want to go back to the lifestyle element, because you sat down and when you thought about opening a coffee shop, it was just like the fact that you were toying with that idea and you know that you want to be location independent. I mean, the type of ideas that we have are fine, but I mean, as a lifestyle strategist and as someone who is so passionate about lifestyle design and making sure that people actually build businesses that support the type of life they want to live and not the other way around, it's so important that, so if you're watching this, that you have to know what you want your life to look like, and then it'll make it a lot easier for you to make those decisions, right? So in the moment, you might have thought a coffee shop and should I really? And
oh my God, I needed you so bad, Noelle. You have no idea. I needed you so bad.
Yes, and I see many people not even taking into consideration their lifestyle goals. And when you don't do that, it makes it that much harder for you to make a decision. So back then, if we had talked, I would have said, okay, how do you see yourself traveling? Do you see yourself working here? How much money do you want to make? How do you want to wake up in the morning? Do you want to be bothered with people at all? Having to say, smile, sit up straight, turn your head. It's just like sometimes you don't want to be bothered. And if you can just have a little bit of clarity, you don't have to have a big, clear lifestyle vision. But if you have a little bit of clarity on what you want to do and what you want your life to look like in those 10 areas, if you go back to your business ideas, you can clearly say, oh, this one's off the list. Oh no, like, I don't know what I was thinking. So just that working backwards or that reverse engineering, the business decisions, because whether we like it or not, every business decision is a life decision and it affects us in so many different ways and we can perceive at the time. And so I just love the fact that you brought up the lifestyle aspect, because many people forget about their lives. They build a business around their life, and you know what I'm saying, and not the other way around. You want to build, you want to build your business that supports the lifestyle. And then many people don't. They build the business and then they have to work their lifestyle around the business. It's like, no, let's work the lifestyle first and then we curtail the business around that. So
yes, seriously, I'm not kidding. I needed you to tell me that so many years ago, because it's amazing, because I'm a creative mind, which means that I think of all these different ideas all the time. So when I was going through trying to figure out, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I was thinking of millions of things. It was just like popping up everywhere. And I didn't have that understanding that you really got to take that into consideration so much, because that could have crossed so many things off my list just immediately. It makes it so much easier. That's such a strong and important message.
Yes, thank you. And lastly, I mean, you've got experience in this. Your entrepreneurship journey has been taking you all type of places. You've learned so much. I mean, what would you say to someone who feels like they haven't quite figured out, maybe not necessarily their why, but let's say they're trying to plug in different things. They're trying to figure out what their business should be. They are feeling like they're just starting new things over and over, and they haven't been able to kind of narrow down where they felt that passion. What's a word of advice that you would give to someone who hasn't quite got it yet as far as what they're supposed to be doing based off of your experience? Can you dive a little bit into that?
Well, I think first of all, exactly what you were just talking about is huge. Knowing what you want your lifestyle to be like and what's so important to you. So the one thing that I knew going through this was that time flexibility was so important to me. That was like one of my essential things, because for me, my life experiences are essential to my happiness, and life experiences for me involve traveling. That's what is like, it's so important to me. So, and that's another thing that I was passionate about, was traveling. So that's another thing that kind of came in, like, should I do something with traveling? Do I want to be, a travel guide or something like that? So it was like, it's so confusing when you have all these things, right? So I think really listening to what you have to say, what type of lifestyle do you want? And also really thinking about what your personality is, because I am a total introvert. And so taking people around on tours, traveling would have been awful, right? So those two things together already are huge. And then really thinking about what you're passionate about, and and understanding that your skill set doesn't necessarily have to be what you're passionate about. It's not necessarily your passion. But even if you're not passionate about that skill set, it doesn't mean that you can't use it as a powerful tool to actually help you in that direction to pursue your passion. So I would say, at least with my situation, I had to really remove and really wrap my head around the idea that I didn't have to be passionate about photography. And that and then when I realized that, and I realized I wasn't passionate about photography, I was able to actually go and explore and try to figure out, what am I passionate about? So if you can just like sit with yourself and really question, like, am I passionate about what I'm good at? If I'm not, what am I super passionate about? And how can I actually tie that in? How can I connect those things so that I'm always working towards contributing to my passion? Especially because I think that you probably attract a lot of people who are very heart-centered and passion-driven people. So if their passion isn't connected somehow to their work, it's probably really hard for them to stay motivated in what they're doing. So I think that's a really important thing to somehow weave in your passion, but it doesn't have to be. Just understand that your skill set and your passion can be totally different. Figure out how you can connect them.
Yes, I love that. Briena, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. I think it's going to help so many people. It's going to open up the floodgates for creativity, and know that there's so many different possibilities in which you can work in the world, and it doesn't have to be a clear set path. And no, you don't have to be passionate about every single aspect of things, and you can use that skill set and apply that to something that you are passionate about. So thank you so much again for, joining me in this conversation.
My pleasure. I was so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. So I would love to hear from you. What have you struggled with when it comes to applying your skills to what you're passionate about? Have you ever felt like there was a disconnect between what you were doing in the world, what your skill set was, and what you're passionate about? I'd love for you to join the conversation. So leave a comment at noellebloom.com. And so just let us know what's your biggest insight from this conversation that you're taking away. Did something shock you about something that we've said? And also, if you like this video, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. As you're out there making a difference in the world, remember to have fun, live free, and feel fabulous. I'll see you next time on Bloom TV. Bye. Are you on the VIP list If not, you're missing out. Head to noellebloom.com now and sign up to get free exclusive content to help you create a business and live fabulous.